Good morning, fellow commission members, staff members, attorneys, and guests. The date is Friday, November the 7th, 2014, at approximately 9:45. I'm Minnie Ann Lane, your commission chairman. I'll now call to order the meeting of the Tennessee Private Investigation Polygraph Commission. I'll request that our executive director, Cody Vest, call the roll and verify a quorum, please.
Thank you. David Brown.
Here.
Larry Flair.
Here.
David Horton. Rick Jones.
Here.
Minnie Lane.
Here.
Jerry Richards.
Here.
Dr. Rich.
Here.
Alan Russo.
Here.
Walt Valentine.
Here.
Let the record show that David Horton is not present, but you do have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'll ask if each of the commission members has received and reviewed a copy of the agenda for today, and if there's a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Rousseau to adopt the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Brown. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now, if each of the commission members had reviewed the minutes of the August 15th, 2014 commission meeting, I'll ask if there's a motion to approve these minutes.
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Valentine. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Flair. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, next on the agenda is the legal report, and I'll respectfully request that our Assistant General Counsel Ed Scudder handle this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item that I'd like to bring to your attention is case number 401-127. The respondent gave a false and fraudulent affidavit when she swore that she had hand-delivered to an emergency room doctor who was a plaintiff in a lawsuit. The complaint, which was filed Private Investigation and Polygraph Commission Rules 1175-04-.04 and .0. Letter, the doctor adamantly states that he and his wife were not in Tennessee on the date of service, and that a family respondent states that the doctor had been trying to evade service for quite a while. She served him as he left for work, but he sped away in his car, and that he called the local police on him. Days later, she knocked on the door of the house and told the man who answered the door that she was there to serve some papers on him. He closed the door and turned out the lights. So she slid the papers under the door and says that she saw him through the window, papers, and look at them. And the respondent states that she saw the judge about what happened because it was not, quote, a cut and dry service. Recommendation is that this appears to be a civil matter, and it would be best handled in the court where the case was being tried. And
Move we accept council's recommendation.
Motion to accept the council's recommendation by Commissioner Rich,
Second.
second by Commissioner Valentine. Any questions? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'll show that I abstained on this one. Carried. It's all right. Problem.
The next case I'd like to invite your attention to is case number 201. Alleges that the respondent did not complete his investigative work and did not provide any report code annotated 62-26-221. Private Investigation and Polygraph Commission Rule 1175-04-.06 $1,000 check for retainer. She then canceled it when she hadn't heard from him for 6 days. On the 7th day, she sent him another check. Pardon me. She was adamant in their correspondence that he not exceed the retainer. The respondent did text emails which were sent to the commission office. The respondent stated that there was an outstanding balance on the account. Engagement agreement. He does not release release reports on cases with an outstanding balance. Currently a civil lawsuit pending between the client and the respondent. Recommendation is to close this matter, as this appears to be a contractual matter, a civil case between the two parties, and it would best be handled through the court system.
By Commissioner Russo to accept the recommendation of council. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Who's- Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Wait just a moment. Let's see if we can, I think we got a microphone malfunction.
Touch it.
There you go.
Yeah. I think I need to turn the volume up.
That's that. You want to speak, just test it.
Testing.
There
Okay.
you go. Thank you.
Three is 201-402-7731. The complaint alleges that the respondent is acting as a private own name without holding a private company license. The commission received investigations, and the respondent, and then the respondent was listed as a private investigator on the card. Additionally, the respondent has a the respondent stated that she had planned to open her own company, had a website designed, and then abandoned the idea for whatever reason, but inadvertently left the website still going. And the recommendation is to authorize a formal hearing with a civil penalty in the amount of $250 for acting as an investigation company, first obtaining a license in violation of Tennessee Code Annotated 62.
Motion.
So moved that we accept recommendation. Council.
Motion by Commissioner Russo. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any
Discussion? Yes, what's going to prevent her from doing this again? Do we tell her that she has to be under a company license? Or do we just assume that she knows that?
That in her, we would send her a consent order, and in that consent order, she would, assuming that she agrees to sign it, she would agree to comply with the laws
Okay.
of the commission.
Is she a private investigator now?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm satisfied.
other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries.
Chairman, I have another matter on the legal report, but would request that that be
So move.
Motion by Commissioner Russo. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Flair. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. On it is the administrative matters. I'll turn to our Executive Director, Cody Vest, and see if she'll handle the administrative matters for
All right,
us.
thank you, yes. Let's go right to B, which is the Regulatory Board Disciplinary Action Report. You have August, September, and October. August, we did collect $3,000. In September, it was $1,600. October, there wasn't any activity. We can take just a moment and look at this report. If you would take a look at the first sheet, you will see that it's the Alarm System Contractors Board. $1,000 civil penalty there against the company. Failure to register their next one was a $5,000. Then you can see this failure to submit employee transfer notice, term. If you look over there, we did have that month some locksmith activity. There was $10,000 civil penalty along with the our legal staff and investigation has been working diligently. Private protective services, if you look at the civil penalty, we had to take action at a formal hearing. One of the $12,000 civil penalty, unlicensed activity. Failure to they have to notify. We do have hearings on them as well. But I just wanted to show you there on these reports. We don't usually look at, there's no questions on B, we'll just move on to C, and that's your open complaint report. Well, I believe you, if you look at it, you only have 6 at the moment. General Counsel just gave you 3, and maybe 4 to set, well, I mean 3. That means there's only 3, but that 3 consists of 2 of them that are brand new, we just opened. And we have to wait until the other one's legal to present to board. That means we have already sent it to the attorney. Okay, so you only actually have 3 complaints. I'm not going to have a budget report for you because it is a year end. I gave you one last meeting. I have been instructed at the next meeting that you have, we will have a representative from the Commissioner's Office, Deputy Commissioner's Office, that will be coming in and discussing the budget. I will tell you, moving forward with CORE, this board, private investigation, On with every other program is paying their fair share of that, and they're going to talk to you about that when they. We did discuss at the last meeting, if I'm not mistaken, we had ended up with something like $6,000. What they've done, they've gone in and pulled your reserve to help pay for this computer system. Or as raising fees, we talked about that. I don't see a necessity at this particular time for that. As long as you do not end in a negative balance, we're doing good. Operate the program, and I think that's what we're doing pretty tightly. So if we have to raise fees, we'll talk about that at another time. I know that was of a concern last meeting we talked. Legislative update. I don't have any legislation update as of yet. Of our programs yet. And that does end my little section there. And I did, let me go ahead and talk to you about the IASR meeting that's in Louisville, Kentucky. If you had an opportunity to sign it. I will be the only one to vote as executive director. I'm going to tease Ed. So we're really looking forward to doing that, and that's going to be held in Louisville, Kentucky, November the 12th through the 14th. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Hey, we're down to the appearances. And we have someone.
Need to take a break. We told the appearances to the people that are going to appear to be here around 11.
I have a motion
Once
for
we,
a
yeah,
break.
excuse me, once we do that, we are bound by that.
Okay.
We cannot move ahead.
Can we skip that and come back to it at 11 o'clock?
Yeah, why don't we go ahead, if you want to, we can do the education committee,
Yeah.
if you had the information.
I've got everything.
Okay, if that's okay with you, Madam Chair?
That'll be fine with
Okay.
me. I'll ask Beth Bell, if she'll, our administrative assistant, if she'll handle that, please.
Okay. Earlier in the meeting today, HTSA's DUI detection and SFST course on behalf of. The recommendation from the Education Committee was to approve.
Have a motion?
Do them all
You
at
want to do them
once,
all
or-
together?
Whichever's easier. We can do one at a time.
Take something.
Questions on some of them. Is there a motion?
So move.
By Commissioner
Approve.
Valentine, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rousseau. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carried.
The next course that the committee reviewed was submitted by John Dennis Ellerby. He attended the Georgia Fire Investigators Association Conference, Southeastern Annual Training Conference, August 6th through the 9th, 2013. It was a 27-hour seminar. The committee recommendation earlier today was to approve.
Have a motion?
Approve.
Okay. Rich, move to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Flair. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carried.
Okay, the next thing was, we had the Knoxville chapter of the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners. They held an 8-hour seminar earlier this week. They have requested approval for that and approval to add their chapter to the list of recognized providers of continuing education.
accept that and also add?
I move to approve and add.
Okay, that's Commissioner Valentine. Second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Brown. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Next two seminars are offered by the Public Agency Training Council. The first one is the Comprehensive Oxygen Forensic Software Users Conference, October 23rd, 24th in Las Vegas. The second course is called Smartphone Forensics and Cellular Technology Certification plus SMART, December 15th through the 19th, 2014 in Murfreesboro. The committee recommendation was to approve both of these, and I promised to send additional information out, so if y'all want to attend, you can.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Valentine. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Russo. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries.
Next item, William Clifton and Peggy Booth were approved at the last commission meeting to offer free 3-hour continuing education seminars in the East Tennessee area. They added 2 topics and some dates in early 2015. They are offering January the 7th, 2015, Covert Systems for 3 hours, January the 14th, 2015, Night Vision for 3 hours, and then on March the 4th, they're offering Covert Workshop for 3 hours, and then on March the 11th, they're offering Surveillance 101 for 3 hours. The committee recommendation was to approve.
Is there a motion?
So move.
Motion by Commissioner Russo. Second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richards. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, the last item on the education report was polygraph training offered by the National Center for Credibility Assessment. It was sponsored by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation and the Northeast Counter Drug Training Center. It was a senior polygraph examiner course. It was offered June the 23rd through the 27th in Nashville. It was a 40-hour course. This was submitted for polygraph continuing education for their renewals. There was some question regarding attendance earlier in the meeting and if it was open to private investigators or other polygraph examiners. We don't believe it was, but then additional discussion followed regarding private investigator courses that are open to the public. So this one we were going to table till we got additional information.
Is there a motion?
Motion that it's approved.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Richards. Is there a second?
I'll second it for the purposes of discussion.
Second by Commissioner Russo. Questions, discussion?
Yep. Beth, can you pull up rule policy number 25?
Honest it.
Here it is.
There you
Okay.
go.
This is up. Get this out of the way. Okay. And these are the minutes from, I had to go back and do some research. Fortunately, I have access to my drive on this computer. This was March the 26th of 2010 when we were drafting rules for the rulemaking hearing that was held in 2011. Okay? During that rulemaking, when we took all the policies, if you remember, in 2010, we were told we could no longer utilize policies. Now, I know several of you weren't on the commission at that time, but the commission had 30-something policies that mainly told the office staff how to handle things and actually had some impact on continuing education and what documents we could and couldn't accept. So we took all the policies, and the commission at that time reviewed all the policies. These are the only ones they chose to adopt, okay? If you see policy 25 is not listed here. see if my notes here say commission members reviewed the current policies and determined to request that the following policies be drafted as rules. Okay? Later in the minutes, if you look down here, here are the policies, all of them. And if I get down to policy 25, acceptance of training. The Tennessee Private Investigation and Polygraph Commission will not accept closed post police officer standards training courses which are not open to the public, and any other courses submitted which are not open to the public will not be approved as meeting Tennessee Private Investigator continuing education requirements.
So we didn't change that one.
They didn't adopt it as a rule, so it was deleted. So that policy ceased to exist in March of 2010. And if you'll notice, it didn't address polygraph examiners. So based on that, and over the last several years, courses as they've come up for review, we as a group stopped asking if it was open to anybody that wanted to attend. Walt brought a question up earlier about this polygraph training being limited to TBI and Highway Patrol polygraph examiners, which we don't know the answer to. But that was the reason that it didn't get recommended for approval during the committee meeting.
Question, can we still make rules of this policy?
That has to be done during a rulemaking.
Yeah, you can draft another rule,
Yeah,
but
during a rulemaking hearing. Whenever we have a rulemaking hearing, that could be one of them yesterday, but as it stands now,
Okay.
we don't have anything in the.
I would like to, well, I think that's after we vote on this motion that's on the floor. I would be opposed to this motion that's on the floor simply because it's not open to any Tennessee polygraph operator that is licensed under our board.
However, there are a lot of police officers, polygraph examiners, that are members.
No
Is it a
discussion.
punitive thing? Is that what bothers you?
No, I just think it ought to be open to polygraph examiners like yourself, if you would choose to attend it.
What about the other examiners, the police examiners?
They're getting it.
Not for Tennessee. It's not
No,
counting toward
but
Tennessee.
you aren't either. And no other licensed polygraph examiner in Tennessee is getting that education. Right?
We have winners and losers. But this is
But all of them can't attend that course.
Make sure we're talking to the microphone, please, during discussion. Mr. Richards.
I had to get my volume, but they get work. Get that
okay.
volume.
It's working now. Sorry.
That little surge, everything's messed up.
Any further discussion?
How many licensed polygraph examiners do we have in Tennessee?
52.
52.
We don't have any way of knowing if any of them attended this class, being qualified to attend under the criteria. We don't know how many of them were there. We have no way of knowing, do we?
We have one that submitted it for credit.
Skip Elrod submitted it for credit on behalf of the TBI and the Highway Patrol polygraph examiners that attended it. Again, are you sure, Mr. Richards, that it was not open to anybody else to attend? Do you have to?
I checked a couple of years ago on the course, and I was told then that it was just for police examiners.
I
They may have changed things
Well,
since then.
we accept a lot of the police polygraphy training that, it's offered by the Police Polygraphist Association. There's about 2 of them that offer training.
Right, American Polygraph Association and the Police Polygraphist.
Right.
But there is no better training than this right here. It's sponsored by DACA.
This was submitted by the organization itself and not an individual.
It was actually submitted by a representative of the TBI polygraph team.
Well, for purposes of discussion, I guess it'd be appropriate to approve it since it's already in the past and we didn't renew this rule. However, in the future, I'd have some concerns if we approved anything that was not open to the people that's under this board's governance. This is a personal opinion, but if somebody offered a course that was limited only to a certain group, then our people would be excluded or included out. I'd have a problem with that. If we have one person that has submitted this as fulfilling his requirements, I guess he took it on the assumption it would qualify.
He submitted it on behalf of all of them, didn't he? Not just him.
He's leading their new polygraph unit,
Yeah.
and he did submit it on behalf of the Tennessee licensees that attended. I believe it was offered to other law enforcement polygraphists that might not even be licensed here because they don't operate in Tennessee. But
I have one question, if I may. Madam Chairman, if we've got 52 polygraph examiners in our state, and we don't know exactly how many of those are Tennessee licensed, they are quite a few probably that would be in law enforcement, and they would be licensed under our board. So if we do not provide that for them, I think we would be punishing some of the members. I understand where Commissioner Valentine's coming from, because I think it needs to be open to all. I'm in agreement with that. But if we don't approve it today, I think your contentions as well is that we would be punishing some of our Tennessee polygraph examiners because they couldn't get that training, or that wouldn't be qualified training. Is that my understanding of pretty much where we are?
Yes. I will change my position on this. In view of what Jerry and Larry have said, I will agree with what you're proposing, and I'll vote for it.
Any other discussion?
May I ask the executive director a question?
Absolutely.
When is the next rulemaking hearing scheduled?
We don't have one scheduled.
Do you have any idea when it might be?
Well, we'd have to, yes, sir, we had some business wants to act up now, too. We don't have a rulemaking hearing as it stands right now. I would have to.
We have to recommend one.
Yes, and then we have to have more than just. We'd have to take a look at the rules, and if there's any, if you can send me anything that you see in the law and the laws here, or the rules that, or anything that you want to add, yes, we
I think that's something,
have a rulemaking hearing.
I think that's something we ought to entertain the idea of doing. However, for the present distress, I'm agreeing with the commissioner who made the motion. Reluctantly will vote to approve it, but in the future, I think anything we approve ought to be open to anybody who wants to take it. And to do that, if I'm understanding what, this slid right by me in 2010.
There was a lot of discussion in 2010 about this.
I'm sure there must have been.
There
I was
were.
asleep. I have to
I
be.
think there was like four of you weren't even here at that time.
they were on the commission.
On the
so-
commission at the time, but it was very lengthy discussion.
Told you I had to be retrained regularly.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's all I
Have any other?
Okay with it.
Okay, the motion was made by Commissioner Richards to approve and second by Commissioner Russo. We've had discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries to approve. You're welcome.
That ends the education report. Unless anybody else has education to bring up.
I have a comment. Based upon what Commissioner Rich has said, Commissioner, would you like to ask that at the next rulemaking session that we readdress what was then known as policy number 25?
Asking me if I will? Sure. Sure.
Then we can get this back on the table for discussion.
Okay, good.
We're down to,
Break time.
take a break, perhaps.
Is Mr. Marin here?
Yes.
Mr. Marin is?
Right, because we've got an appearance coming in. 2.
Okay.
You didn't remember that conversation? I know, that's fine. That's fine. You got so much on.
Call the meeting back to order, and I'll ask our Executive Director, Cody Vest, to handle the appearances, please.
All right, thank you. We're going to move right on to the section that says appearances. And the first one we're going to have today is Mr. Rocky Montgomery. Mr. Montgomery, would you please come up and sit down in this first chair? I think you can hear. I think I got the mic set there for you.
All righty.
Well, you might want to swap a chair or something.
Okay. This is all right.
Is that okay?
I think I
And
can
then
handle it.
I'm going to turn this over to our legal counsel.
Just, oh no, there was, Mr. Montgomery, I'll tell you about his business, but, or that he has operating, and there was a question as to whether or not he needs to be licensed, and there's not an Attorney General's opinion precisely on this point, and so it was just I'll make the determination as to whether or not he needs to be licensed.
First of all, thank you for letting me come in here to appear before you. I'm going to tell you a little bit real quick about InterQuest. InterQuest Detection Canines is the nation's oldest and largest contraband detection canine service provider. They cover 21 states. Our canines are just sniffers, okay? In February of 2013, basically I bought a franchise of InterQuest Detection Canines. We do business as Tennessee Canine Services, LLC, doing business as InterQuest Detection Canines. Now, what we do, well, when we started this, before we entered into the agreement with InterQuest, their attorneys had checked the law regarding the PI license, and their opinion was that we did not need to be licensed as a PI. And my goal here is to find out whether we do. If we do, then we will comply, of course. We started February 2013. There was one client, Benton County, that had been using InterQuest out of Alabama for 7 years, okay? Basically what this is a deterrent program. Our canines are trained to find not only illegal drugs, but they find prescription pills, firearms, and alcohol, okay? So basically, right now, like I said, we had one county in February 2013. As of right now, we have 15 counties, and we're growing. We have 4 or 5 more counties getting ready to sign up for the first of the year. And because it is a deterrent, that's why the directors love this. I was at a board meeting a couple of weeks ago in Jackson County, and they approved us for use, and the director, Mr. Barlow, had talked to one of our clients who just started using our services this school year, and I hadn't even talked to her about this. She hadn't told me. Already they've had a drop of 75% of zero tolerance cases. Okay, so what I did was there's been an allegation in August that we needed to be licensed as a PI. So at that time, I went to my attorney, and that's the first thing there, some Wolf McLean, and I asked him, I said, would you please review the law and let me know what you feel if we need to be licensed as a PI? And that's his opinion, basically his opinion, because we are there as an agent of the school. What we do is when we take on a client, the director will give us a school calendar. He'll mark off the days that they does not want us to come on campus. From that point on out, the only person that knows when my handler is going to show up on the campus is me. I set the schedule. I tell my handlers. I have 2 handlers right now. I tell them what date, and what they do is when they walk into the school, they go to the administrator, the principal, vice principal, and says, I'm here. What do you want to do? And my handler has no say of what they want to use. This is a tool, okay? And what happens is the kids see him coming in consistently, and they never know when he's coming. And I've got a letter in there from one of my SROs in Lawrence County that told me at the SRO meeting up in Pigeon Forge this year that his snitches were coming to him and telling him that the kids were afraid to bring anything to school because they never knew when we were going to be there. So when my handler comes in, he gets with the administration or with the administrator, and the administrator says, well, I want to go do lockers, I want to do cars, I want to do classrooms, what have you, okay? The administrator is always with him, okay? He is never alone. When let's say he's out doing the parking lot, let's say the dog hits, the dog's just a sniffer, so they're not aggressive. She sits and indicates. And my handler will usually double check before he'll take the dog away, bring the dog back, make sure the scent, that's the source. At that time, the administrator will call the student to the vehicle, say to the student, this gentleman needs to speak to you. My handler will say, we're out here doing an inspection. He'll tell him the dog's trained to find illegal drugs, prescription pills, guns, and alcohol. And he'll say, my dog's shown interest in your car, and we just need to know why. The handler will say, well, have you spilt beer? Have you got, these dogs will even pick up on ibuprofen, Advil, and such as that. And he'll throw out suggestions, and then the student will say, well, I don't know what it is. Well, my handler will then say, would you please open the door so I can search? We don't demand, we're not saying, we're not making any accusations. He asks permission from the student. 90% of the time, the student will go over, open the door of the car, the locker, the bag, or what have you, okay? If the student refuses, and we've had students say to him, well, you need my permission to search, and he will say, yes, I do. At that time, that's when the administrator steps in and he says, I can search your vehicle anytime, any place. That's what the policy is under the School Security Act. And he said, I'm going to search your vehicle, or you can give him permission to search it. 9 times out of 10, the student will go ahead and open the door. If the student will not open the door, my handler steps back and the administration does the search from that point. Okay, so let's say the student does say, okay, go ahead and search. If you go, well, first, let me go to the second thing right there before I continue is our agreement with the sample agreement. And you'll notice I've highlighted that we are there acting as an agent of the district, okay? We are not there as law enforcement. We have nothing to do with law enforcement. So that's our agreement right there. Now, if he finds something, let's say, for instance, he finds contraband that's ammo or fireworks or the dog doesn't hit cigarettes, but we find tobacco all the time. A knife, okay, illegal drugs, prescription pills, whatever. At that point, my handler will fill out, that's the report right there. It's called the Incident Maintenance Report, okay? He will fill that out. He'll put his name, location, the name of the dog, and the date, and he will mark what he found, what's suspicion. Now, what's very important here is if you look down on the bottom, it says custody FR, okay? At that point, he will sign over, he will put the evidence in an evidence bag, and he will sign over custody from, and then the administrator, not the SRO, not the police, but the administrator will sign off custody too. So what we have is we have a record of, we've turned over the evidence to the administrator to process, however they proceed. The rest of this are just letters of some of our clients that, what they state about the program. You know, like I said, my whole goal here is to find out whether we need to be licensed. And if so, then we will comply. But, you know, my argument is that, and my attorney's argument is that because we are there as an agent of the school, the board, the school board has to approve it, and there's always an administrator. We never go on the grounds or do any searches without the administrator. And, you know, that's I just need to know if we need to comply and get a private license. I mean, right now I do have a licensed private eye that's on my board, on my LLC as a secretary. My other handler, he was licensed as a PI at one time, and he is currently a police officer, and he can renew his license. It's just that myself and my other handler would just have to go through the process. And like I said, we don't have a problem with that. But for right now, the main thing that concerns me is that I have 15 counties that I have an agreement with to provide this service. It's a very important service. And I don't want to cause anything to come down to someone to contact us and say, oh, you need to shut down, okay? Because this is a very important service to the schools. And I just want to make sure that we're in compliance and do whatever's necessary to make it the way it needs to be. So that's about all I have to say.
Let's make sure our microphones are working.
Motion by Commissioner Brown, is there a second?
Could you clarify your motion, please, that we accept?
I make a motion, he does not have to have a private investigator's license.
Second by Commissioner
Second.
Valentine. Discussion? Commissioner Russo?
I'd like to ask our staff and attorney what's the opinion from the
As excuse me, as I mentioned before, there's not really an attorney general's opinion or any legal case that cites a precedent that we can just really hang our hat on. But what I can do is let y'all see what the law says. It would be presumptuous of me to try to replace my judgment and opinion with y'all's. I mean, y'all are the ones with the experience. So I certainly don't want to try to replace y'all's judgment with mine. But I can point out to you statutes say. Oh, I'm not sure if can y'all, any of y'all see that?
You need to read it. It's on your
I see the heading.
We got it's on the iPad.
Good.
Yeah, I can see the heading real good.
This is a section from Tennessee Code 62-26-202. And I'm looking at number 6. And it says, investigations company means any person who engages in the business or accepts employment to obtain or furnish information with reference to A, crimes or wrongs done or threatened against the United States or any state or territory of the United States. B, the identity, habits, conduct, business, occupation, honesty, integrity, credibility, knowledge, trustworthiness, efficiency, loyalty, activity, movement, whereabouts, affiliations, associations, transactions, acts, reputations, or character of any person. C, the location, disposition, or recovery of lost or stolen property. D, the cause or responsibility for fires, libels, losses, accidents, damages, or injuries to persons or to property. Or E, the securing of evidence to be used before any court, board, commission, officer, or investigating committee. And then later at the bottom, a private investigator, number 10, means any person who performs one or more of these services described. Other TCA section I'd like to invite your attention to is TCA 62, 26, 223, B1, which states this part does not apply to, number 1, a governmental officer or employee performing official duties. And that's not all the relevant law that we can really direct you to.
May I ask counsel a question? Has this been submitted to the Attorney General for opinion?
No, sir, just because of time limitations.
Gotcha.
They-
Oh,
you know,
gotcha.
Eric,
Sure.
one thing, with my attorney, and this is my question to him, because we are there as an agent for the school. We are there as a tool for the principal. And my question was always, a principal or a vice principal, anytime you or I step onto their property, we drive our car, anything on their property, you're subject to search, whether there's suspicion or not. They can search you for any reason on that. And the fact that we do not actually proceed with prosecution, we turn over the evidence to the school to fall through. We had a teacher in one county who kept leaving. This is a fairly large county, even though we might not be going to his school. He would get sick and leave the school. The SRO, the main head SRO, who is that letter from, asked me, he said, Rocky, I know you can't tell me when he's coming, but the next time I want you to come right to that high school first. So we did, and the teacher got sick and wanted to leave. Well, they said, no, you can't leave. They're doing the parking lot. They did the parking lot, and they recovered a pop pipe, okay? At that point, my handler signed over the pop pipe to the school, who then, the principal, they contacted the DA and they processed it and prosecuted, and we were never even called. If we had, it would have been just to substantiate the dog, okay? So my question to my attorney is this, is if my handler is there as an agent of the school, and the principal has the authority under the School Security Act, why doesn't the principal have to be a PI if he's conducting investigations and collecting evidence?
I think the last citation by our attorney addressed that. The exceptions to our act is a governmental official or officer or employee performing official duties.
I would fall under that.
Well, no, the principal does.
Oh, the principal.
You're a contractor to the principal.
Right, an agent for the principal.
So
That's where you get in splitting hairs with the agent, because I know legal investigators, if you're working on the and it's the key word, direct supervision of the attorney, you don't have to be a licensed PI. But
If you only work for one attorney.
well, you're right, but I'm saying if you're doing work, but in that regard, but in this situation, I'm beginning to.
Madam Chairman, may I ask Mr. Montgomery? You're a private entity. You work for 15 different school districts at this time.
Currently.
And you're registered, I'm assuming, with the state of Tennessee, Secretary of State or whatever, under your company.
Right.
So you are monetarily supplemented for your actions.
Correct.
And is there any other companies, such as a manufacturing company or industry or anything that you operate in?
InterQuest does commercial, but we don't. And I could see why I would need it for commercial. Definitely. I've in that area, because what I'm going to do, this is planned, whether you give me an exception or not, I'm going to pursue the PI license anyway, because, this service, I can offer this to prisons, I can offer this to manufacturers. What my biggest concern right now is that I don't want to get an injunction saying, hey, you gotta shut down. And that's why I told my state representative, I said, I don't care paying for license. I don't mind going through the education and everything that's necessary. My big thing right now is I need the time frame to get all my ducks in a row so that we can be properly educated to be a PI. Because, when I look at what a PI does, I have to go through an education course. I admire when I looked at the duties of a PI and I look at all what they have to know and do and all that sort of deal. Well, I don't do that. I mean, my handler goes in with a dog and walks around, and if you went to the search room, he would run the dog around here, the dog would sit, and we'd call the person and we'd ask them permission to do the search. So, I'm not going to court. I'm not coming, a kid would come out. We had a kid at one school, and he come out and he said, and he's a little preppy little guy, and he come out and he said, y'all are profiling me. Y'all are doing this. I said, son, that dog doesn't know you from Adam. I said, we've been searching this parking lot and the dog sit. Well, he filed and he said, well, you have to have permission. Or I'm not giving you permission. That's when the principal stepped up and said, we're going to search this vehicle whether you like it or not. The kid said, okay. Well, what it was, he's 16 years old and he had a 12-pack of Bud Light in the back of the truck. And, it's just, what I need is this, I need this to say, hey, Rocky, what you're doing, we don't see as a PI, that you're not out here prosecuting, you're not gathering evidence, you're working as an agent, and let me go ahead and pursue to get the PI license. Because, I own my primary business is a financial consulting firm I've owned for 28 years, and I've been really blessed. In the last 2 years, my employees run it, and I was bored. And I thought this was a great idea, and this is something that would help school systems. Now, I love it. It's a great service. Let me tell you, the changes it makes on school grounds, okay? The teachers feel safer. These kids are not bad kids. 95% of them are good kids. And when I'm explaining to the first time we make a visit and we're doing a classroom, and I always go to the first visit. I don't go to each visit, okay? I go there to make sure that administration understands how we work, okay? Make sure that they let the handler do the job, they follow our policies. And also when the kids come out and they're wondering, we don't have to do a lockdown, first of all. Okay, the kids, it doesn't disturb their day. But when the kids come out and I tell them what the dog can do, and I say, if there's a gun in there, y'all would want to know. Their eyes light up and they go, yeah. They want to know this stuff. So, I don't mind going through and getting licenses as a PI because I need to on the commercial side anyway. I do recognize that. Okay, I just need to know that I'm not going to have any issues getting the license as long as I go through and, like this gentleman who's on my board, he can be very helpful to me, okay? He's agreed to sponsor. So, I just don't want to have to stop doing business. That's my whole goal here is to make sure, and that we're not out there being accused of doing something that's not right, okay?
Madam Chair, may I make a statement? It's my opinion that the only entity that could shut you down would be this attorney and this staff. So what I think I'm going to suggest is I'm going to agree with the motion that right now what you're doing, you don't have to have a license, but I want your commitment that you'll pursue that.
Definitely.
And if somebody comes and tell you got to shut it down, you tell them you've already appeared before this commission, send a meeting, you're trying your best. And so we got to be careful here, or we have to start licensing the dogs.
Well,
so
yeah, and the thing about it is I already have my application in for myself and one of my handlers, and Mary Beth Gribble is just holding it. We've already been printed and all that. But what I do want to do is I'd like to take the course, to get the transcripts and everything, so that if I'm gonna be licensed as a PI, I want to be able to at least know what it is.
You're going to have a company license to begin with.
Exactly.
Then each one of the persons involved if you go commercial, you're absolutely going to need to be licensed, each individual.
Can I ask you a question?
Surely.
Okay. On the company being licensed, okay, it says you have to have 2,000 hours of billable, okay? And we probably have, when we started in February 2013, we had that one school, okay? We didn't really start having the growth until I went to the TOS, the school superintendent meetings in September 2013, and that's where we gained several of our clients, and that's what's happening. The directors talk about how great it is and everything, and they're basically on the brink of we're getting calls to do this. If I go back to my billing period of the hours I have in billing, and I apply as a company to get my license, being that we weren't a PI during that time frame, am I going to be accused of operating as a PI company? You see my point? In other words, I will have the 2,000 hours probably in the next 3 or 4 months to get
We're
licensed as a
getting a
company.
little too far off the subject
Okay.
here.
Well, I'll tell you
That's
what, let's not
things
worry
that you
about
would
that.
have
Let's
to-
not worry about that.
That's things
Let's-
you would have to
Okay,
follow
I'll
the
look
law.
into. I'll follow. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Let's
I'm
get
sorry.
back on the subject of,
I'm sorry.
Okay, it seems to me like as long as you're only going to schools, you're acting as an agent of the school, you don't have to have a license by our board. That's my opinion. If you go to a business, then you do have to have a license. So you can work toward that.
Definitely.
But
Definitely.
whether your hours would count or not, you'd have to bring that to our committee.
That's fine.
we
I
have
appreciate
a motion on the floor and a second.
Offer amendment to the motion.
Okay, go right ahead.
Friendly amendment is that the gentleman does not need a license. However, we would like to ask staff to check with the Attorney General's office for a ruling. Would that be acceptable?
That might need to be a second motion.
Need to be a second motion?
Yes.
I
let's
think
get
so. I
through
think
what we're
that should-
working on right now.
That should stand on its own, I believe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let's don't
I
tie these
withdraw.
together.
I withdraw it.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion?
Do you have any thoughts? Okay.
Very seldom.
Why did I know that?
The real attorney showing out in
I should know better.
Actually, we have the law.
I'm sorry, that's that door I was telling you about.
We have the laws in front of us here, and we need to consider this and make a vote on this motion.
Motion was that he did not need a license. Is that correct? Okay, all right. Just wanted to clarify what I'm voting on.
Okay.
Call the question.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Oppose?
Aye.
I'm going to abstain myself. So we've got 7, motion carries. Do we need a roll call on that?
I would dare say yes.
Okay.
David Brown,
Aye.
Larry Flair,
Both.
Rick Jones,
Aye.
Minnie Lane,
Abstain.
Jerry Richards, Dr. Rich,
Aye.
Alan Russo,
Aye.
Walt Valentine.
Aye.
Motion carries.
How many?
I'd like to move that we direct staff to ask the Attorney General's office for opinion on this. I think this might come up again.
I second that.
Motion by Commissioner Russo, second by Commissioner Rich. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
We'll pursue the PI license.
Up
for
to you
this.
and your company.
All right. Well, thank you. Do you need anything else? Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have another appearance.
Yes. If I can pronounce that, Marlon?
So that's Exhibit D.
Under appearances, yes, D.
Aaron, go ahead and have a seat.
Will you hand me one more iPad, please?
Aaron's here to appeal his denial for material misstatement of an application that he made.
It'll take us just a few minutes for the commission members to view this because we've not seen this before. Thank you.
Exhibit
D,
D.
D as in David.
David.
Oh, no.
Sir, would you like to make a statement to the commission?
I appreciate your time and allowing me to appear before you. The letter I submitted kind of encompasses everything I would say orally.
It was that water bottle. It said it made a bruise and swelling.
Small 12-ounce water bottle.
Filled. Just an empty water bottle.
You're still married to that same lady?
Sir, I am.
Is she here with you today?
No, she's not, sir.
Okay. That's fine.
Currently licensed in Florida, is that correct?
Sir, I am.
And your wife is also?
Yes, sir.
Is she licensed in Tennessee?
20 year, I'm sorry, go ahead. 20 years in Florida?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Since the day of your arrest, you've made several Florida.
Yes, sir, I have.
What did you indicate on their forms?
On their forms, I indicated that there was none, which they don't specifically ask for arrest in Florida. They ask for convictions. And I've undergone FBI checks in Florida as well, and I was never informed whether it came up or simply approved, so I never followed up. There was no reason to for me.
One, sir, with all respect, was that a misdemeanor strictly?
Yes, sir, it was a misdemeanor, battery.
And you were in law enforcement at one time as well?
I was a probation officer for the state of Florida coming out of college, yes.
And in the private investigative world for 20 years? Okay. And no other infractions that you can share with the board in the state of Florida?
None whatsoever. That was a regrettable mistake on my part that I live with all the time. I'm in the process of taking the measures to have it expunged. I qualify for that because there was never a conviction, and it was a misdemeanor battery. But I mean, through my career, I was in the military. Impeccable record, and that is a deep regret on my part. It was just a situation where it was a marital argument, and since then we've both predicated on this meeting today. We are going to apply for the agency license here in
Is the-
10 years ago?
Yes, sir. 10 years ago this past September.
Motion.
I make the motion that his
There's a second.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Jones. Any question and discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. To approve your license. Good luck
Thank
to
you
you.
very much. I appreciate it. As far as, will I be contacted by the state now, or do I
Yes,
contact?
sir.
This
We'll
would be
take-
questions for
We'll
the
take care of all
administration.
this for you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I think now we need to go back. We're going to turn it back over to our counsel.
The last item on the legal report, case number 2014023991. This complaint was opened when the office received an allegation that since 2012, the respondent had serviced the general public, specifically school districts, in the detection of narcotics and weapons inside school buildings through the use of drug detection trained dogs. It is alleged that the respondent's findings were used to take disciplinary action, including suspension against the students. The complaint alleged unlicensed activity in violation of Tennessee Code annotated 6226-204 subsection A and 6226-202 subsection 6. The respondent stated that he did not know that he was required to have a license. He has stated that he will immediately apply for a license if the commission determines that the activity in which he is engaged requires a license. The recommendation that we made, or that I made, is that if the commission determines that the respondent is engaged in an activity that requires a license, it is recommended that he be sent a letter of warning and that the complaint be closed. But that, in light of the determination that's been made today, you all may want to amend that to close the complaint altogether, or alternatively send a letter of instruction, if y'all would prefer that.
Move that we close this complaint.
Motion by Commissioner Russo to close the complaint. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Valentine, discussion?
I think we ought to send a letter to him saying that no license is required as long as he's dealing with dogs in the schools.
Discussion?
Do I need to amend my?
Well, your motion was to
Close the case.
close the case.
Based upon what Commissioner Valentine. Close it on the basis that he will not commercial service until he gets properly licensed. Letter of instruction. Okay. All right.
Motion as it was. Okay. Second still stand?
Well, I think we should send a letter to him stating that no license is required as long as he's dealing only with schools. But as soon as he starts a commercial, that a PI license would be required.
Motion second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose?
I oppose.
Motion carries.
That concludes the legal report. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. We're down to unfinished business. What have we still got?
I don't have any, Madam Chair.
Okay, what about new business?
Don't have any.
Did anyone sign up for the continuing education participation forum? No?
Nope.
Have a motion to adjourn. I believe we will be through today.
I will make that motion, Madam Chairman.
Motion by Commissioner Blair to adjourn. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Commissioner Rich. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion, meeting is adjourned.
Motion is adjourned.
Motion is adjourned.
Hey,
Dog issue
good rest of the week. Hope you do too. All right, my friend.
troubles me a little bit.